thank you all for being here. So this is the book release of Slaughtered Lambs, by CJ, which yeah, right here it's Slaughtered Lambs, um, by author CJ Brodie, who is also to us James Christopher.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about why you use a pen name, Phil?
Yeah. So I'm going to be doing a lot of kind of publishing, going back to some of my old scripts and things like that. And one of the things I was thinking of, I always have Jason in my head when I think about stuff, brand positioning. And I've got like the Christmas novel out under Jim Christopher and the festivals under Jim Christopher. And so I didn't want someone to think this would be as warm and fluffy as a chance of snow. And then a woman dies from a rattlesnake bite on page 15. And it's like, whoa, this is a way different thing. So I was just trying to kind of position myself where, like I have the Were Bitches stuff up there, Curse of the Furbies, also under CJ Brodie. So it's really all about having an expectation of what you're going to get depending on what name. So like I'm not like trying to hide, like I'm not Batman or anything. I'm just,
Or you are, but what if I was Batman? Yeah, I think you are. I'm sorry.
where are the other drops going?
So yeah, no, I mean it makes a lot of sense, right? Like this is the genre stuff. This is the other things. So Jim asked me to do this panel and said, hey, check out the book. Let me know, just let's talk about it a little bit. I had no idea what I was gonna get into. I was like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do that. I had never read any of your work, like in terms of even scripts or anything like
Okay.
that. So I had no idea. I was kind of blown away by this book actually. It's a horror novel, but it's also like a really interesting examination of like religious trauma and sort of how people who have grown up in very strict religious environments kind of cope with that as they become an adult. And yeah,
Orbit.
cool.
Sorry.
No, you're good. So uh, it- but in terms of like the actual story, why don't you give me the elevator pitch? Give that.
Okay, yeah. So it's based on an independent film we did, oh boy, like 15 years ago now. Jason, 15? Oh boy. Called Abram's Hand. And Abram's Hand was really kind of a more traditional slasher, but it was very much inspired by the Westboro Baptist Church. If you know those people, the God Hates Fags people, those guys. And the idea is kind of what happens if you take that fervor to what in my mind was the next logical step. And I will like to point out a couple of things. We did write our movie and shoot our movie before Red State. It's just that Kevin Smith edits faster than I do. So we were not. I have an interesting. I've had interesting interactions with Kevin Smith through my career, where he sometimes thinks I'm always trying to rip off his work. He called Funny Books clerks in a comic store, to which I replied, "We actually moved the camera, so it's more high fidelity in a comic book store." But that's kind of where it was. I mean, like the Westboro Baptist Church became famous for lots of things, including protesting dead soldiers. And I'm a vet. And so it just really started to kind of get under my skin. And when we were looking for a horror movie to do, that kind of became the jumping off point for sure.
Yeah. I I use the term Texas Pentecostal horror to describe this book.
Okay.
Is that fair? Is that a
Yeah,
the book?
definitely.
Okay, what do you like? What would you call it? Like, what's your sort of subgenre that you
I think
lock it into?
I've like Southern Gothic
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Again, but I think religious horror definitely is part of it. It definitely is cult horror, I guess.
Yeah,
It's definitely in an area where I think it lives.
yeah. And you kind of just explained why you were interested in this topic.
Sure.
Wh- why do you think religion features into so many horror stories? Like, why do you think it's a topic that?
Well, I think it's a great question because I think in some ways I think it's something most of us can relate to in one way or the other. It's supposed to be something that provides comfort. And in some ways, in horror movies, right, the religion is the comfort. The exorcist, the Catholics are the good guys. But I also think that anytime you get stuck in something where you're kind of being pushed, an ideology is being pushed on you, it's not that big a leap to take it and twist it just a little bit and turn that thing that you believed into of becoming something that can be very evil in your life. And so I know we're going to get into that part, but the book is not like anti-religion and anti one specific viewpoint that doesn't allow for free thought anymore.
Right, and very cultish in nature. That particular.
Definitely. Like, yeah, definitely there is, like I'm a political moderate, right? So I don't like purity tests of any kind. And this is really kind of examining um, a group of people that if you must believe 100% of what they say and believe, and if you don't, you're doomed. And that's kind of what the theme was.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, uh, Opening pages, literally first 2 pages, I felt like I was reading a Landman novel. You were describing like, you're literally describing East Texas the way that you see it in that show, very vividly, and in fact, I argue, like, your descriptions in general are very, very you very clearly set up these scenes, with, like, a sense of, "I know exactly where I am, I can see it."
Right.
How do you approach that? How do you approach writing descriptions?
Well, it's weird because, and I was talking with some people about how like it's different than a screenplay, right? Where it's got to be you have to be much more detailed oriented when you write it. Whereas a screenplay, you kind of can just say West Texas, East Texas, and then we're off and running. But Texas is a big place, and change of geography is a part of the book. And so I really wanted to paint how different the desert of West Texas is versus when they end up in the sort of piney woods of East Texas. And if you've ever been to West Texas is beautiful, but it's also hard. And the people that live in West Texas and make it, it's a different kind of human. And I really wanted to kind of have that be very much a character, particularly at the beginning of the book. And then if you've ever, the sort of the end of the book takes place near Huntsville where Carlo lives. So that like the humidity and the deepness of how thick those woods can be. I think people have an image of what Texas is. And I think most of people think Texas is the West Texas part. They don't think about
Right.
how dense the East Texas is, the piney woods and all that stuff. And so I really wanted the elements to be part of what was kind of driving how the story was evolving.
Yeah, absolutely, and then the book is very bifurcated, right? Like, there's basically the first half and the second half. Yeah, they you move locations, and you have a slightly different thing going on. Structure. So, yeah, why that structure? And also time jumps. You start with some time jumps. So, how did you approach the structure in general?
Okay, so the time jumps part I'll do first.
Sure, yeah.
Part of it was, and it was really kind of a practical thing of I wanted to keep the setting in the book from when the movie took place. So the movie took place when it was made, which is like 2011, and so Iraq and Afghanistan were still going, and I felt like I needed to have that still happening in the background for some of those scenes to work. So it was practically more of I didn't want to update that part, and then again, I wanted it to kind of feel a little bit jarring to make it feel like we've established this one space at the beginning, and now everybody's in something they don't quite understand or not familiar with when we get to the majority of the book, which is when they're on the actual retreat in East Texas. But the time jumps, I wanted to kind of not just the whole idea of one of the wars to still be going, so I could have the funeral scene, but also to really establish the fact that some of these towns in West Texas have been in danger of blowing away for decades. And I kind of wanted to paint that part of it. And then having this religion we made up really show that it's been rooted in this community for not just 5 years, but for decades. And that was a big part of it.
Fair. Yeah. So let's like take just a step back and talk a little bit about the setup of the story, right? So we have this town,
Sure.
New Eden, in West Texas, and we have this church, and we have this pastor who runs the church, and then there's the children of the church, I think,
Right.
who are kind of our main characters, our main protagonists. And then there's another form of evil besides the cult, right? There's a second sort of
Right.
form of evil, and these things sort of end up tunneling and intertwining together to lead to the end of the book.
Right.
But really, we're following these kids as adults, as we've time jumped to them as adults for the majority of the book, as they return home,
Right.
and with lots of trepidation, I would say.
Hmm.
So that's basically the setup, yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Basically, the setup is again, like you're saying, we have these 7 friends. Six of them all go out and go to college, and they experience new things, and one of them doesn't, and becomes very like enwrapped in it. And then out of sense of obligation or sense of, we can put the church aside, let's go see our friends again. They end up kind of reuniting for this event, and things start to go really, really wrong. And part of that is couched in the fact that a lot of these people either can dismiss the faith they've grown up with or are almost like really hostile to it. And then how that counteracts when you've got someone who, like we mentioned Jack Chick comics, right? So I don't know if y'all know what Jack Chick comics are? You're right. So they are these incredibly hardcore right wing uh, comics about death, destruction, and God's coming back for revenge, that kind of thing. And so, like, I kept including those in the book because of like that's well, these all guys went and they met different people and they learned different things and they've had different experiences and in some cases found different faiths to follow. He never did, and how that kind of interacts with each other was a big part of the conflict.
Right, and each of these characters sort of represent different experiences that someone who, like, stepped away from that would maybe go through, right?
Right.
So and they come back with their own different versions of adulthood, as we all do, but, like, it was there what I really liked about this book in particular is that those 7 characters or 6, I guess, it represents well, even 7,
Yeah.
even
Even Zach. Yeah.
represent the different ways that as you grow and sort of, like, start questioning or don't question, you you can you kinda people turn out the way they turn out, but you did a really good job of, like, exploring different avenues through these characters.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, it was again, it was kind of important. And the other thing too is I wanted, Zach, for as much as he is this closed-minded, incredibly right wing, still very much controlled by this faith, I kind of wanted him to still be sympathetic and tragic. Like so much of why these friends decide to like they've moved on, but so many reasons why they go back in some cases is to like kind of rescue this kid and try to get him out of this really small dying community into a world that's much bigger. And I know it's like the cliche to say that you want sympathetic I wouldn't even call him a villain, but you want sympathetic characters even if they're not necessarily good people. That was very much part of our goal, and part of it comes from it's interesting, like, writing these characters, it was kind of fun because I had made a movie already. So I had actors that I had gone through that I'd cast that I was falling back on their voices, and I remember, like, um, the Reverend Delphus is played by Billy Crane, who we've honored the festival after, and Billy's a Christian. Billy's was in law enforcement, and he took the approach of, "I don't like dirty cops, and so I want dirty cops to be outed, so I'm going to play this part as if he's not really what a Christian's supposed to be," and then that was his way of enveloping. Zach, the super closed-minded kid, is played by a homosexual man who had very much the same thing. Like, for as much as a lot of the dialogue really pissed him off, it was kind of his goal to one, still try to find some way to be sympathetic about this character. But it was kind of neat because if I found myself hitting a wall, I remembered what their voices were and was able to just like let them again, one of those writer cliche, I let them tell me the words. But it really was kind of a nice fallback of of if I felt stuck, I can remember, like, kinda how those performances went, and it helped.
Absolutely, fantastic, yeah. So, which brings up a great question. So, yeah, this is the 2nd of your movies that you've now turned into novels.
Yeah.
The word novelization doesn't quite feel right in this situation.
No, it's like a backward adaptation almost. And the first one started out was practical. There's been some interest in Chance of Snow being bought by someone, but they would like to see a novel. They don't wanna, like Hallmark and companies, they want to look at a novelization. They don't necessarily want a script already written. So that's where that began. Um, but also too, it's fun to do this, and at some point in time, like, um, I know we're gonna get into why I decided to pick this movie, but at some point in time, I'm turning 50 in March, so I'm already having these, like, legacy feelings, and at a minimum, like, when I'm gone, my grandkids have a book of something I created. I don't want them to read it until they're 16 or 17, but yeah,
Look, it's fine. There's, like, almost no sex or violence in this book at all. Sorry. It's packed to the gills with sex and if you don't like sex and
oh boy.
maybe step somewhere
I
else.
had a rule, like, every 4th page, somebody, better get penetrated one way or the other. So, true story. But, but and it's the kind of thing too where, like, there are spec scripts that I wrote that did really well but never sold, so I'm adapting one of those now too, and part of it is, though, is, like, I always start with long form synopsis anyway, and I adapt that when I'm writing a screenplay, so it's almost like I just went back to kind of an earlier stage in the writing process and kind of, like, Marvel timelined it, right? Like, I didn't go back in time, I created a new timeline.
Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, so you had alluded to it, so I'll just ask, so why this story? Like, this story has a lot of, uh, applicability to things going on in our country right now. Was that part of why, or do you just like, why did you come to do it? Because you've made several movies, like, a ton of movies.
Yeah.
Why'd you say it? I'm gonna now make a novel out of this one.
Well, I think I don't know that one, I think I've always been somewhat dissatisfied with the movie. And part of it is it's the 4th film we made, and I still didn't know what I was doing. Like, first it was our first 4th film, first horror feature, and we all, like, busted our ass, and I mean, like, the shoot was grueling, but, like, for as much as I hate it, I understand George Lucas, like, looking at the first Star Wars and being like, "I'm so much better than I was in 1977. I'm gonna go back and fix things." And so kind of it was based on that, and so, I felt like if I went back and rewrote it, the work at minimum would stand on its own. It's not gonna be interpreted by, um, we had a continuity error, or an actor couldn't show up, so we had to rewrite some stuff, or, an actor was mad at me and decided not to be good that day. Like, whatever, whether it's good or bad has everything to do with it being me and not any other thing that creates, like, a barrier entry to the story. So that was a big part of why.
Yeah.
Um, and then this one, but this story has always kinda meant something to me. You know, I probably will, like, some of my rom-com stuff, I probably will go back and see if there's, I think, a market for it, but and there's the other thing too, is there's a market for it, so that was just
Oh, sure, sure.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Back to Jason and Branding, right? And so, hey, s you said something to me yesterday. You said, "I was surprised at how pro-Catholic this book came out."
Yeah,
And you got characters like Mary and Joel who, their journey is
Mary becomes a Catholic. That was not intentional, although it was, like,
right,
it's not like a Christmas movie where everyone's named Nick or Chris or Holly,
right, although a lot of religious name, I was gonna say,
I did go to the Bible for all the names, that's true.
yeah,
Yeah.
um, yeah, Mary, Sarah, Zachary, yeah, no,
Yep.
you're good. But her journey in particular is she still wants the comfort of faith, just not the strict cultish sort of version, right? Is that fair to say?
That was it. So, one of the cool things about it was I got to make the characters a lot more three-dimensional. And again, I didn't want the book to come across as anti-religious. I'm very much still Catholic, although as an aside, I went to Catholic school. I teach in a Catholic school, and my mother asked my wife why none of her sons stayed in a religion. I'm like, "What? I thought I'm a priest. What do you expect?" But anyway, this is not therapy. Um,
It can be.
it can be fine. Plus, she doesn't know how the internet works. She's never gonna see this. But so I wanted to present the other thing too is like my mother-in-law grew up Catholic but left pre-Vatican II. Are there any Catholics in the room? So you know when I say pre-Vatican II, you know what I mean, right? Like it's a much different religion than it was pre-Vatican II. And so I wanted to paint the picture of something that was kindler and gentler, and one that is less like there are like the phrase cafeteria Catholics. Like I would consider myself a cafeteria Catholic because I am pro-choice. I'm also pro-death penalty. I say take them out of both ends if you ask me. But come on, that's funny. But y'all laughed at the penetration joke, but not that one? Okay. So no, I wanted to paint something a little bit kinder and gentler. But the other thing is for a lot of really, as my grandfather used to refer to them, Protestant religions, Protestants, but a lot of like super evangelical ones, there's a like hatred of Catholics is like way up there. Like if you go out to West Texas, there are billboards telling you why the Catholic Church is wrong. It's crazy. And so I knew that when that reveal happened, that would be a natural flashpoint for one of the violent scenes in the book. So um that was a big reason why of I also thought it would be kind of disingenuous if all 6 of them left town and all 6 of them gave up on religion altogether. Like, that just isn't, I don't think, how it works.
Right, exactly.
So you've got, like, the Tim character who does it enough for his mom to be happy.
Yep.
And then, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah. Yeah, again, all the characters have a slightly different approach to leaving, but they all feel real. They all feel like things that you know people that this has happened to. Like I even mentioned, I have a friend who was Pentecostal and is now a Catholic. You know, it literally happens.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting sort of the way you've drawn this, and that's the theme part, right? The story is fun. The story is, I mean, ultimately the story is kind of a slasher, right? Like at the end.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, it was a slasher, and I mean, some of it when we did the movie was really based on, um, what are some ways I can go shoot a cheap horror movie? Like, we shot we shot most of the movie within 100 square yards of woods. We just pointed the camera in different directions and it looked different. Like, we did it.
Than that.
We got right because what's the rule, right? One location, as few actors as possible, and you're off and running. And so it really was following that kind of basic idea. Um, and then the thematic stuff, and we were trying to kind of say, uh, filtered in later.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it's really, really well done. Um, I yeah, the only thing I have left is, I just, going back to movie to book, like, just, um you've talked a lot about it, but, like, is there anything interesting about that process that you haven't covered?
Yeah, because, everything about a screenplay is like efficiency, and it's limited to what you see and hear. Like, you're not supposed to do things like internal monologue unless you have a voiceover. You're not like internal motivation does is not if you function it correctly. And this is one of those things where I get real specific about because I spent $40,000 getting a film degree, and damn it, I want to be right on something. But but there are very specific rules in a screenplay. It's got to be like in the formatting matters, right? It's page a minute, and you need to be able to hand 100-page script to a producer and have them reasonably be able to tell that's a 100-minute movie, roughly. And so some of the fun part was breaking myself of that habit of being minimalist and realizing, no, the audience needs to have a bit more of the picture painted for them. And, and I struggled with, kind of finding a style. Like, some of the rewrite, like, it was very purple. It was very, like, overly writerly, and I was like, "Well, that's not me." Like, I like to be pretty direct, and so that part was fun. Um, Going in there and, again, like, being able to take even some of the smaller characters and making them a bit more three-dimensional was a lot of fun, and then doing a backward tie-in to a book that Billy and I had written, or a movie Billy and I had written with the ranger character. Like, the ranger character is not in the movie. He's gonna be featured in something else that Billy and I had worked on that I'm gonna adapt. So, but really a lot of that was kind of fighting against the programming of, um, allowing myself to spend a little bit more time and thought, and kind of just, again, breaking some of those screenwriter rules was fun. Now I don't know if I could now go back and write a screenplay, it would be hard, but that was the biggest struggle and the biggest
Right,
challenge.
so yeah. Yeah, and then we had this conversation because I wrote a prose story last year for anthology for the first time in, like, 2 decades. I hadn't written prose in forever, and
Right.
you literally have to change your mindset a little bit, 'cause you're
Yep.
so used to screenplays having a certain format, and then that just goes out the window.
Definitely, and, it had gotten to the point where, like, writing screenplay stuff was so second nature that I didn't even think about it, and then I even found myself, if I got into a groove writing, it almost started to, like, I mean, I wasn't quite like interior church day, but it was kinda started to look like that. I was like, "Wait, that's totally boring for someone to read," to go back and, like, again, deprogram it and tell people it needs to not just say interior rundown church, because a production designer is not going to come later on and decide what that looks like. I have to, because that's like one of the big things with young writers is you see like them try to direct on the page or production design on the page or tell the actor, like I said, directing what to do on the page, where you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to kind of leave people to make creative choices.
Right.
And so the idea that now I was kind of going into the prose route meant I had to actually make all of those creative choices for them. So that was definitely, again, a fun part of the challenge. And the biggest thing is, like, obviously the books are for sale and you can Venmo for signed copies. Just I will I'll mail it to you. But obviously, like, but the pressure for it is not the same as it was for a film. Like, it's out there now, and if people like it, people like it, and if they don't, it don't. It's not like I've got to now go cast it and think about what the budget I'm putting into it, and now I hope I can make some of that back. Like,
Right.
part of it was just a fun creative exercise because I'm not really making any films anymore. So, that was a big part of why.
Understood, yeah. We should probably that brings up a good point. How other than the people here can just grab one of these from you and buy it, right? How do you yeah, where do you get it?
So it's on Amazon. You can do the paperback and the in Kindle, and I think the hardback's on Amazon. And then also too, if you DM us, if you're watching, and you want a signed copy, we can Venmo and I can mail it to you. So either way,
You get
and you can buy it today on Venmo. So the paperbacks are 20 and the hardcovers are 30. and I'll sign it for you and give you a hug. And then if you get one, you can have a poster. And look, full disclosure, I used AI for the poster, and I'm not embarrassed by it. Um, and like, because I'm doing the AI talk, so I'm warming everybody up for the AI talk, because I think if I were a graphic designer and I created an AI thing and tried to sell it as my own work, that would be like if I had put like I know some people we talked about this in Atlanta. Like we know some people that will simply throw their script into Chat GPT and say generate prose and then say, yeah, I wrote a book. Like that to me is not a proper ethical use of AI. I don't have the budget for a graphic designer, although my brother Tim's doing my cover for my new one. And so I basically spent, I mean, like days playing art designer, art director, and running up against the we cannot show children in peril uh thing. So I like took a baby photo and then like had a shitty Photoshop of a snake around it and it said redraw this and it did. So I guess yeah, I guess I did more than just put it in Chat GPT actually. Now that I think about it. Okay. Yeah, any is there any questions? Yes, sir.
So, I've had some interactions with Westboro Baptist,
Oh, I hope they find out about it. It'd be so good for sales.
right?
When we made the movie, we tried to invite them. We Chris Koppel, you guys remember Chris, created a fake profile on Facebook to pretend to be really mad about trying to get a protest. We just weren't big enough for a protest. It would have been so good for us.
We need to talk later about that. Anyway, what did you say your role was for this book?
Well, it really the inspiration of it. When I saw them, when I saw them showing up at soldiers' funerals with signs that say "God hates fags," I was like, to me, it angered me on many levels. And the biggest one being someone who's lost friends in combat. And it seems like if we can find a couple places where I don't need your anger, probably a soldier's funeral is one of them. And so the funny part was the scene is in the book, but the funny part was when we made the movie, we felt like we were missing one thing. And so we staged a Westboro Baptist Church protest in front of my house that we had lived in for about 6 weeks. And so our neighbors had no idea what the hell was going on. So you had Billy Crane standing in his like starch white shirt like this with all these signs up, and then you had like this like sad mom like looking out the window at our home being protested, and all our neighbors were just like, "What the hell's that?" And so I had to go like to everybody's house afterwards. Just making a movie. It's cool. I don't need a permit. Leave me alone. Yes, sir.
What's your process of writing? Like, do you have you have a couple of a day? Do you outline it first? How long quick do you? What's your
All of those things. So I'm definitely someone who has to like commit to the chair. Like I have to, even if I sit there for an hour and a half and don't write anything and just be mad at myself. Because if I let it go, because that's the thing is I do so many other projects that it's easy to be like, well, I'll just edit today. So I had definitely in the morning need to go. He and I like he's got it when he knows when my coffee's poured, it's head up to the office time. Um, but a lot of it is just like the cliched stuff. When I have ideas, I write it down in the notes app. And then I kind of like this was interesting because I also used the screenplay as an outline. But for the screenplay, like if I was doing a traditional screenplay, it would be just word vomit of notes and then a short synopsis of the whole thing. That might be 6 pages of prose. And then I will do an actual longer outline. And then I'll do another synopsis that now might be 30 or 40 pages of prose. And then another outline. And then I'll go to the script at that point. So the script itself kind of writes itself at that point because everything's kind of been done. But for the novel, it just kind of um definitely a micro outline that got bigger and bigger and bigger. The other thing that I know, like I'm jealous of people who can sit down and just write and it makes sense and get there. But like I have to know the end before I can even start. Um, I'm too ADD for any other way. So discipline. Like I was thinking about this. Like if I'd been in the military, I never would have done any of this stuff because it's so much discipline for me to get it done is required. Does that answer your question, Lucas? Yeah. Yes, sir.
do you feel like your perspective on any of the theme of the book, like religious abuse or with Westboro Baptist Scripture, Texas, has that changed since working on the film? While you were writing the book?
I think if anything, the sort of more pro-Catholic element that crept in, maybe. And I don't know if we didn't include that in the movie because I felt like it was extraneous and it would have been cut out. Like we didn't need that. But I think In many ways, we used to have one of my actresses I used to love. Her name was Stephanie, and anytime we were doing a scene in a movie that dealt with the theme of the book, she'd take theme stick and she would like hit everybody in the head with a theme stick. But I think like this movie definitely, or in this book, was definitely like an axe to grind against cults and against religious extremism. And I think if anything, my anger at it got sharper to the point that, like, the character of Stan, which I don't want to,
Right.
where
Right.
he's now this guy that's being tacitly protected, that didn't exist in the movie necessarily.
Okay, yeah. So I've never seen the movie, so I only have the book as
Okay,
a
so
reference. Yeah.
so there is a character who murders somebody at the beginning of the movie that's supposed to serve as the red herring for the book.
Yeah.
Um, but just when I see the lengths of which, even, I mean, even being Catholic, like one of my favorite movies is Spotlight. I'm not hidden. I'm not like at all blind to the fact that anytime you get an organization of humans, bad things often can and do happen. But I think watching the political environment today and the way people will say and do terrible things and hide behind religion, which is, you know, um, I find it interesting that so many people that want to use religion to uh, be anti-abortion or anti-homosexual or whatever, always quote from the Old Testament, forgetting the fact that one of the big parts of the New Testament is Jesus saying we throw all that shit out, doesn't count anymore. Like, it's literally what he says. They forget that part. And so I think I got real axe to grinding, and it maybe even to a degree that it might have hurt the writing. I don't know, but there's definitely some of it I did not want to be vague at all about what I was feeling when it came to that stuff. Yeah.
So since you've written the book and obviously changed a lot, and kind of jumping off of that question, theoretically, if you went to kind of do a review production, kind of like Evil Dead 1 to Evil Dead 2, what's something about production that you would change to make it kind of updated?
I'd have more than 4 costumes. No, like, you watch that movie, they're all wearing a different colored pullover. I would hire a costume designer. No, it's an interesting question, and I think, man, I don't know. Like, it's so weird. Because the thought of reshooting it, for example, never once entered my head when I was doing it. Um, my husband's back there, and he's still not convinced I'm retired from filmmaking. And every once in a while, I'll have an idea, and I think, boy, but what a hassle, right? Like, oh, I gotta talk to people then. Um, but I do think that I think I'm a better director now. I think I would be a better filmmaker now because, again, I made that movie with no resources, and it was the fourth feature I'd done, and I still just didn't know what I was doing. And I think as a director, I would know better how to tell my actors what I'm looking for. I think that I would just all around be better. At least I hope so. Yeah.
I'm curious how piggyback on that question. Having watched the whole screen they go through and then watching the whole movie through, did your characters teach you anything that made you want to change your own their stories?
Yeah, I mean, I do think, again, coming back to, wanting to flesh out 2 characters I think got fleshed out more, and that was the character of Sarah, which, inside note, there's always a character Sarah in all of my movies because I'm a massive fan of The Crow, and that's the name of the girl in The Crow. So there you go, a little bar trivia about me if there's ever a trivia question about me. But
And religious name. You got them.
I know I'm all over the place.
Dovetail there.
I did. But no, I think, what I really wanted to play up in the book is that the only reason why Sarah's going back is that her foster brother, Zach, and she's like really trying to, because in the book, Sarah's in a same-sex relationship and she knows that that's not going to go over well. And I think she really goes back purely her, for her brother, like one last shot at having a relationship with her brother. So I think I would definitely drive that home more. And I think, again, Mary going back reluctantly because she's gonna marry Good Time Charlie. He's like, come on, they're friends. How bad could this be? Turns out real bad. Well, I would definitely play up, I think, her soft conversion more. Like, I think those 2 things really were some of my favorite parts to write in the book. And I was thinking about this too, like one of the scenes that's not in the movie that we wrote in the book was one of the hardest scenes to write. And in it, when they're kids, it's the scene when Sarah's punished for hugging her brother. And, so there's a scene where Sarah and Zach are brother and sister, but they're not blood related. And Zach had been made to feel ostracized. And so she gives a hug that dad thinks is a little too long. And then she ends up getting punished for it. And that was an incredibly difficult scene to write. And it's not even like the punishment is over the top. It's just the very concept that there are ways that we interact with people in this town and in this religion that are so counter to the way, I mean, I hug everybody. Like it's one of those things. So I think that was again, something where wanting her real reason for not wanting to go back had to be something more than just, well, I'm gay now and I don't like lesbians. Like I had to make it, had to put something more ingrained there. So like adding that scene was one of those moments I think you're talking about where it really kind of add a little something that I didn't necessarily think was going to be there until, but I went back and added that chapter like after I think the second, like I did 5 drafts of the novel. I think after draft 2.
Yeah, and that section is one of the time jump sections.
Yes.
And definitely key, I think, to setting up, making these characters, making you understand where they're coming from in the main portion of the story.
Yeah, and it's weird because I tried to do things like we have a dinner scene where they're all back and she goes home to see her dad and Betty, played by Elizabeth Kring in the movie, like is really, I tried to paint her a little bit caught in a rock in a hard place because she loves and accepts her children, but she knows in her role as wife and therefore matron of this church, she can't openly love and accept her children. So I tried to I really wanted to have as much push-pull as possible and not make it so black and white, because I think that's easy. If I was just to kind of make them Darth Vader and Mrs. Darth Vader. No, Mr. Vader's dead. That's why it's Darth Vader. Actually. Yeah. Because you're talking about a right-wing cult, and and in that world, her job is to do what her husband tells her to do. And her husband says, living that way. I mean, even her continuing her education, that's not going to help you in this world. All right, that's not going to help you in the next world. So what's the point? And so I was really, again, we're looking at a very like right-wing, patriarchal, and if Malachi says it's wrong, then it's wrong. And you don't go against your husband in that faith. So all the little she has like micro rebellions of still showing her kids that she loves and accepts them without overly challenging him. Sir.
So having a screenplay and then having a feature finished would be really weighty for me. Going back and revisiting those, that would have a lot of mass and momentum and be hard for me to know what to change about that coming to rewrite as a novel. I often have trouble navigating that. So how did you, when you went back and revisited material and said, I'm going to write a novel,
how did you know what was right to change? How did you make the decisions?
It starts with a deep sense of self-loathing.
Yeah.
I pretty much shaped myself. You know what it was? It was honestly Jess was really good, was a really good resource because what I love about my wife is she's incredibly supportive, but also incredibly honest. Now, sometimes she's honest after the premiere, and I'm like, honesty would have been about a month and a half ago. That would have been time for honest. You know what? I would have taken that scene out. Well, now it's staying in and shush. That actually happened, Jason, when we were at Twister Alley for the 5-year premiere. And you might look at some of those red carpet photos in a different way now. I'm by myself, so but mostly, look, I don't like the things I've made. So I trusted her instinct. I even went back, like we had made a top 10 of some random Canadian horror blog for the movie. And I've gotten to know the writer. And so I kind of went back to him and was like, he rewatched it, and we kind of agreed that the skeleton worked, the beginning, the middle, and end worked. And so, a lot of what really was just kind of removing things that felt extraneous or deepening moments that if I had just kept them the way they were in a novel would have seemed shallow and kind of just afterthoughts. But a lot of it was me really just relying on a couple of people that I had no interest to tell me it was good just because.
Right.
and go from there. So so I've written stuff that I'm kind of like working on that didn't start out as a screenplay. In some ways, it's been easier than
It would be for me too. That's why I asked.
yeah. I mean, and again, some of it's like, or the worst part is like I tell my students, or like when I would write and direct something, I would write it and then sit on it for a long time and then go back and read it again as if I've never, because you don't make shortcuts in your head. And so some of that was happening in the adaptation going, well, of course I know how this is going to work because, and forgetting that people that are reading this have not seen the movie. So some of it was that challenge as well.
Yes, Lucas. Tell you the question. So I'm toying around with novel writing as well, and I find it really difficult to decide sort of past telling or present voice, or sort of omni-aware and third person, first person, or what are the benefits of each? And I should try to write a chapter in past form and present form. How do you decide on the form for your book work the best?
Well, I felt like third person kind of omni felt the best to me, and the time jumps kind of made things that kind of helped.
There's a large number of characters, so that also
That also helped too. And frankly, I just don't think I'm smart enough for first person. Like, I'm I don't know how I couldn't even wrap my head around how to even begin that process. So I just felt like kind of like a sky view of it to me seemed the best approach to take.
Past or present?
And then I went mostly, I think, I went past
To get perspective.
to give the perspective, right? And sometimes it was just simple as it just kind of sounded better in my head. Like, I don't know. Does that answer your question? I feel like that one's not making the supercut. No. Yeah. Cedric, did you have your hand up?
Do you have a question, Santa? I do have it.
You were doing that thing my high school students do. I'm just stretching. Well, don't be a dick. Put your
So you have, do you have a preference, because you've written books that you've adapted to screenplay, written preface that you've adapted to books. Do you have a preference on which one you enjoy the most?
I think probably the book thing I enjoy the most. My favorite part about filmmaking was never ever any of the stuff I did. It was the stuff other people did to do things I didn't see coming. So when we talked about this before privately, when you get a performance and an actor brings an angle to it that you didn't see coming, like that's my favorite part. Or, like we work with Texas Renegade, when they would write a song based on the screenplay that was like, man, like, so in many ways, my favorite part of filmmaking was seeing people that I think were smarter and more talented than me, like see something I didn't see. But with the book thing, again, whether it's good or bad, it's all me. And it's neat to get a box with your name on it, even if that name is fake and new for this particular brand. It's my initials backwards, and it's the sheriff from Jaws, if you're curious.
Follow-up question?
Yes. Yes, I might write erotica, and no, I'm not sharing it. You can make so much money writing bad erotica. I've even got a name for it, but I'm not gonna take. Another character from Jaws, we last name it. What's that?
When are you going into production on an SPL to retire?
Actually, I'm going to be talking to you about story. I'm going to be actually working on something. I'm working on a book and a documentary that I've ran by some people at Major League Baseball that they seem at least not like interested. They're going to help me make it, but maybe they would support it if it happens, about being a vet, baseball, and PTSD. And so I'm actually going to be looking at kind of a documentary project about that. So I'm going to call it To the Ball Game, How I Found Zen at a Ballpark. I'm friends with a couple of people in Major League Baseball's public relations office, and they've supported both Let's Get To You and Ballpark Nation, and they seem like interested in the idea. So I think like I come up with ideas for movies I'd like to make all the time, and part of it's just I think about making movies the way I think about basic training. I'm so glad I did it, but I could never do it again. And I just think what filmmakers continue to do, it's incredibly difficult. And I think, like, if someone came and said, I want to buy Slaughtered Lambs and hire you to make like a higher budget, I just don't think I can do a micro budget film again. I just think it's too difficult. If somebody like paid me to do something bigger, then I could. And I think also too, like when we talked after Chance the Snow Wrapped, and I said like, in many ways, I've told all the stories that I feel like because we did 15 features in 12 years, and I had scripts for 5 more because I was going to end at 20. Like 20 is a great number. And then I kind of realized that 16 through 20 were sort of variations of things I'd already done. And I can only do awkward sex comedies. Maybe one of my 50s would be funny. Like, because now you get to think about like now you need Cialis. And what if you can't get it? Or what if it's up for 4 hours? What do? They drain it. So yeah, they put a hole in there, and yeah, it was on the pit. I don't recommend it. So, but I think doing something about baseball and vets and PTSD and what in Seattle, yeah, what the flag means to me at a ball game, I think is something to be interesting to do. Yes, sir.
So, did you or do you experience like the form of like identity crisis when you're switching meetings? If that's the case, is taking a pin aid tied to that in terms of like so putting on another.
I guess this is therapy. No, I mean, I'll be honest, to a degree, yeah. Like, one of the things about being a filmmaker is it does become part of your identity. Like, you're a filmmaker, and what's weird is because I'm also a podcast host, but everyone has a podcast, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, I do think, like, now that I think about it, even the book published under James Christopher, it's not James Christopher, it's Jim Christopher. Like, I didn't even necessarily make the connection, but I do wonder, yeah, I would say so. Like, I've been wrapped in this identity of being this one thing for so long, um, and having built a reputation for it. Like, it's funny because, I had reached out to Chris about doing this, and Justin's like, "You should ask Chris to do it. He'll do a good job." And she was wrong. And he wrote back this amazing text message, and my response was, "I'm just glad you didn't think it sucked." I don't know, like, I had built a reputation in the indie film community where I think people at least had an expected quality of work from us, and we played. I mean, we played festivals. Everything got on Amazon in one way, shape, or form. So this really is like flying without a net right now, and I'm like, and there's still like ego plays such a role in like like I don't know if I'm gonna reach out and get people to review it or not. Like go to like actual like blogs or stuff because I don't know if like I'm like Marty McFly's dad. I don't know if I can handle the rejection. Um, Whereas if people didn't like a movie, I can just the actors suck. What are you gonna do? So, so yeah, I think there's a yes.
Did you find that converting it to a novel was kind of freeing experience? Like when we drilled into our heads and like each exchange, don't have sentences more than like 12 words and don't have more than 3 lines describing it. Now you have the license to like expound upon whatever you want without getting pedantic, but you have the freedom to explain everything.
Once I got used to it, yes. At the beginning, it was hard. Like we were saying earlier, like it was difficult to break all these rules that I had. And I'm also one who believes that rules in confinement are great for creativity. Like, I think, when I teach film and I'll tell students, you have carte blanche to make whatever short you want versus here are parameters. The ones with parameters are always better. Limits are a good thing. Self-imposed or not. I'll tell the story where we got an angry email from a script that we rejected. And the guy accused us of not even reading his script and all of this stuff. And so I decided to be honest with him. So I wrote him back and I was like, look, you had 4 judges on your script. You averaged 5 out of 10. You wrote a 177-page action comedy that's supposed to feel like Magnum PI. It's slow. It's boring. You're using antiquated formatting techniques. So I don't even know how long this movie's supposed to be. Would you like me to go on? And it hit send. And he didn't write back. But if that guy had been smart, he would have said, okay, I'm working in this genre. That parameter is no one's going to sit for longer than maybe 110 minutes for this movie. Therefore, I need to have those parameters. Whereas a novel could, anybody who's read Stephen King, go on forever. So yeah, on the one hand, it did become freeing. But then on the other hand, I feel like people get tired of my voice, so I was wanting to still kind of maintain as much like narrative economy as I could.
Well, or keep it interesting. That's all. And so even if it's a little longer, like
Yeah, I mean, I hope it. I mean, I hope it's interesting.